Hello everyone, we're going to take a look at what will be the best 4-star weapon for your Rosaria, so let's not waste any time and get started. Now, I've limited it to 3 weapons, which are Blackcliff, Deathmatch, and Lithic Spear, because we're working with a freeze support Rosaria, so these are going to be the spears that will help utilize her abilities the best. As always, level 80 Ascended Rosaria with level 8 talents. At the time of the recording, this was all the data I had, so I couldn't work with what her max level, or more importantly what her max talents would be to change her damage output. Resistances are based on Hilichurls, and I'm assuming you have another Cryo character to apply Cryo Resonance. We are also assuming you have 4-piece Blizzard sets, and more details on main stats and substats will be provided in the video. The first one I started was with Blackcliff, because my predictions are that this would be the best weapon for Rosaria because she's already going to be pretty stacked with crit rate. Now this would be the best artifact set for her if you had a Blackcliff pull. Notice I have no crit rates applied on her except for the base stat crit rate. This is because this is a spear that you are technically working with without any buffs. Apply Blizzard Force Strayer set and Cryo Resonance, and we are assuming the enemy is always frozen, then you are going to have this. Unfortunately, crit rate is maxed out at 100%, so you're stuck with this. Just be aware that Regina Probationum has not even been applied yet, so there's a lot of crit rate you are missing out on. Let's assume that you have a C2 Rosaria, which gives you a huge buff from her constellation that allows you to have 2 additional DOT from your burst. This is going to be the damage you do with a Blackcliff Spear if all of your burst hits when the enemy is frozen. You can look at the XL file if you want to see how it looks like with the Blackcliff Spear buff. I would not recommend getting a crit rate circlet as you are losing out on a lot of potential crit rates. However, if you are limited, then this is a golden ratio of substats to be obtained from this specific build. Even if it says this specific crit rate, if you're planning on utilizing Regina Probationum, then you just need 1 base crit rate, and you should not need any more crit rate for your Rosaria, and instead should be trying to maximize your attack and crit damage. Now what this means is that if you're trying to go with a freeze composition 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set, you want your circlet to instead be crit damage, which will utilize the missing crit rate from this build. You might have realized that Deathmatch is going to be bad for Rosaria, as the Deathmatch has a crit rate higher than the max crit rate circlet, which results to a lot of loss on your crit rate. So I just didn't include Deathmatch for this video after making this discovery. Here is what we would want with a crit damage build. From this one, we actually would want crit rate as we're not going to have enough for this build. If you have a C2 Rosaria, she will be doing this much damage, which is slightly higher than your crit rate build. Here is the golden ratio for this specific build for the substats. I would recommend going for this one, not just for the extra damage, but you have a bigger safety net on getting it on the substats that you would want to be boosted in comparison to the crit rate build. The very last one is Lithic Spear. The reason I wanted to do this one is because it has a much higher base attack. Its ability has a permanent crit rate and attack percent boost on Rosaria depending on number of leeway characters, which can make a difference, and it specifically did. With a crit damage build for Lithic Spear with 3 leeway characters with all indicated buffs from before, you would be doing this much damage, which is significantly higher than the previous ones discussed. Although it has lower crit attack, do remember that Lithic Spear has a higher base attack than Blackcliff, which does have a huge influence on how much more damage it could do. The golden ratio for this one would be this. There's 3 issues with Lithic Spear though. 1. You need 3 other leeway characters to maximize the damage on this build. You're limited on what characters you are able to use with this, but if for some reason you can't use any leeway characters, you lose some DPS, but not enough to actually be worse than Blackcliff. 2. Lithic Spear was a limited edition weapon, meaning that if you didn't get it back in the banner that it was in, it's currently not possible to obtain it unless it appears in another banner in sometime in the future. 3. You have no safety net for this build. Everything must go in these exact substats to maximize the utility of this build. To summarize, you don't need any more crit rate, so don't go for a crit rate build, and Deathmatch might not be a good weapon for Rosaria. Lithic Spear gives the highest DPS, but such a build is almost impossible to build. So, Blackcliff Pole crit damage build would be the most accessible and easiest to build out of these 3, and in my opinion, the best 4-star pole art for a freeze composition support Rosaria. I hope this video was helpful for all of you. Give it a like if it did, and I will see you all on the next video.